We're going to finish this a very short part of chapter 2. I don't know why I stopped before, but the rest of the chapter, well, and we actually already started it, right? So it's really about things that can cause some conflict or controversy, or parents get told you're not doing it right or whatever. So they're kind of giving parents in this chapter some ways to think about it from the RIE method and to build the confidence of the parent in knowing their child. So the next section on page 46 is about pacifiers. Magda was opposed to pacifiers and wrote that popping a pacifier into a crying baby's mouth sends the message, I don't want to hear you, stop crying. We've all seen a frustrated parent quickly thrust a pacifier into a sobbing baby's mouth without even looking at or speaking to the baby. This is surely an example of what Magda was writing about, but in the early weeks before your baby has the control to get her fist or fingers to her mouth, offering a pacifier to suck on may help your baby to soothe. Try to slow down and first observe your baby to determine whether or not she really needs a pacifier. Understand that if you offer it to her, she will very quickly come to expect the pacifier and will have a hard time doing without it. It's astonishing to see how quickly babies become conditioned to certain interventions. Sometimes parents unintentionally create a need that really wasn't there to begin with. If you choose to offer a pacifier, it's important that as soon as you see your baby push the pacifier out of her mouth when it's offered, that you put it away. At that moment, let your baby's desire to cry and desire to cry without the pacifier override your possible need for her crying to stop. When pacifiers are used insensitively and indiscriminately, they can harm the relationship between baby and parent because they send a message that the parent doesn't want to hear what the baby needs to express. Pacifiers also hinder a baby's ability to learn to self-calm. When a baby comes to rely on a pacifier instead of a thumb or a finger or other means of self-soothing, it can be very difficult when that pacifier falls away from the non-mobile baby or out of the crib. Yeah. Then instead of relying on herself to soothe, the baby must rely on an adult to give her the soothing object. So if you choose to use a pacifier, do so judiciously. Offer it, observe closely to see if it helps your baby to calm, and put it away as soon as she shows you that she's no longer interested by pushing it out with her tongue or turning away from it. And then Ariane Groth, a parent, says, when my son was an infant, around 4 weeks old, he had a pacifier with a small stuffed animal attached to the back. One day, I heard him fussing and noticed that the pacifier had fallen out of his mouth. My initial reaction was to grab the pacifier and put it back in his mouth so that he could stop fussing. But he wasn't looking at me, and I'd already recognized that when he really wanted help, he knew to look for a person. So I waited. To my amazement, he slowly worked the pacifier back up to his mouth with what ability he had. The tiny movements of his torso and head nudging the stuffed animal. I was reveling in this achievement when I watched him spit out the pacifier and start the whole process again. It was a game he was playing. If I had grabbed the pacifier and shoved it back into his mouth, I would have killed the game. And his motivation. After this, I tried to always wait for his signal that he needed me before stepping in. It was definitely difficult at times, especially when he was fussing and my mother was there. But I would just relate this story and explain why I was waiting. And then this is always a huge one. Sleep. Routine, rhythm, routine, and sleep. The first days and weeks at home with your newborn can seem like a fog. It's hard to imagine that life goes on outside the cocoon you're living in with your baby. Trust that as you develop a rhythm and routine, the fog will lift and you will begin to feel more yourself again. A large part of the adjustment to life with a newborn is learning to cope with interrupted sleep. So, do your best to sleep when your baby sleeps. If you have a choice between returning a call and taking a nap, choose the nap. Take care of yourself by resting whenever you can. In the beginning, since your baby can't distinguish between night and day, you will have a 24-hour schedule. Your baby may sleep more hours during the day than at night. In the early days, it may be all you can do to make sure that your baby's basic needs are met, and yours are too. So try to let go of expectations and any desire to get on a schedule. If you can feed and diaper your baby and also squeeze in a shower for you, great. When your baby is a few weeks older, more alert during the day and sleeping more at night, you will settle into a more consistent rhythm, and routines will naturally develop. Some babies have fairly predictable sleep schedules at a young age, and others seem to have little or no pattern at all for many months. It's important that sleep and feeding schedules follow the baby's cues rather than the baby following predetermined sleep and feeding schedules that may have little or no relation to her true rhythms and needs. You can certainly look to the clock to keep track of how much time has passed since your baby was last fed or rested, but then observe her to see if she's tired or hungry. Although your newborn will sleep much of the time, looking to her for signs of sleepiness is a good habit to get into. Right from the start, get into right from the start. Likewise, you'll feed your baby when you observe that she's hungry rather than following a precise schedule. Of course, you might look at the time so you can keep track of her last feeding or use a handy smartphone app. Then observe your baby to see if she's truly hungry, knowing that the ultimate answer will come from her. And what about swaddling? So Magda does really take strong opinions on things that I think are a bit over the top sometimes, but I do think this parent is really good at being like, respect your knowledge of your child. So, just as she is about to get to sleep, you may be surprised to see your baby suddenly startle. Her arm and legs may twitch, or her whole body may shake and shudder. These involuntary movements are natural and will soon diminish. In the hospital, many newborn babies are immediately wrapped in tight, swaddling blankets that bind the baby's arms and legs and restrict movement altogether. But Magda was opposed to anything that restricted free movement, and a tight swaddle certainly doesn't allow a baby to move her body. In a swaddling blanket with her legs and arms tightly bound, a baby can't access her hands and fingers to self-soothe. Tight wrapping in the hip area can also increase the risk of developmental hip dysplasia. I don't remember this part. I once took part in an RIE Foundation's class exercise where I swaddled as a way for me to experience things from a baby's point of view. Even before my partner had finished wrapping me, I panicked and instructed her to remove the swaddle as fast as she could. Ever since then, I've wondered if swaddled babies quiet down and go to sleep because it's preferable to feeling the panic or physical discomfort that comes with not being able to move. A sleep sack where your baby's arms and hands are free can provide a much better alternative to a swaddling blanket. Since sleep sacks are loose around the hips and legs, your baby can rest on her back and with her hips fully relaxed in an open position. A sleep sack should be used only in the first few months of your baby's life and should be dispensed with well before you observe your baby attempt to roll onto her side. By this time, she will need her arms and legs and feet free to move so that she can use them to balance on her side. Colic. When a baby is irritable or crying for some unapparent reason, parents sometimes say that their baby is colicky or must be teething. Perhaps giving a label to things helps to soothe parents who dearly want to understand every cry and complaint emanating from their child, but colic is a confounding topic, and whether or not a baby is colicky can be subject to interpretation. Most babies are fussy toward the end of the day. They cry off and on or continually for a while. This is natural. These late afternoon and early evening periods of crying usually decline within a few months of age, but not all babies who cry inconsolably or for a long time are colicky. A colicky baby cries persistently at least 3 hours a day, at any time of the day or night with little or no let-up. In addition to crying, she may stiffen her legs, extend her legs, or pull them up to her stomach, arch her back, and howl with an intensity that may be alarming. A colicky baby is expressing physical discomfort. Colicky babies may have bloated, gassy stomachs that cause them a lot of pain. Some breastfeeding babies are sensitive to food in their mother's diet, and this may cause colic. Vegetables like broccoli and cabbage often produce a lot of gas, and citrus fruits, dairy, and other foods can be troublesome too. If you think that something in your diet may be upsetting your baby's stomach, you might want to keep a log of what you eat and eliminate a few items at a time to see if your baby responds more positively. Colic can also be caused by an allergy to formula or gastroesophageal acid reflux. Both can cause abdominal pain and spitting up after feedings. Some babies who are particularly sensitive to stimulation and more difficult to soothe are sometimes called colicky, even though the discomfort is not physical. No matter the reason, long periods of crying can be physically and emotionally exhausting for new parents. At times like these, desperate parents resort to desperate measures, like bouncing and rocking their babies, sometimes for hours on end. Instead, do your best to create a peaceful and soothing environment for your baby. Turn down the lights or turn them off completely. Turn off the TV, radio, or music. Pick up and carry your baby slowly. Speak quietly when you need to change or move slowly. And as always, use gentle hands. Don't assume that your baby needs to be held all the time. It's possible that she'll be more comfortable lying on her back, where she can choose to extend her legs or pull them toward her tummy to help eliminate gas. If she has acid reflux, she'll need to spend some time upright. If your baby is colicky, ask your doctor for medical advice and enlist trusted friends and family to help by looking after your baby so that you can go for a walk or just get out of the house for a while. In the newborn period, it may feel as if the days go by incredibly slowly, and then all of a sudden your baby's a month old. How has time gone so slowly yet so quickly as well? Maybe it's the newness, joy, and wonder of it all, the intensity of emotion, the deep sleep deprivation. Be kind to yourself as you get to know your baby and find your way to establishing a rhythm and a routine.